Here is the script translated into English, with a focus on retaining the captivating and engaging tone of the original. When P.D. Ouspensky published his secret diaries in 1949, he revealed something authorities had tried to hide for decades. There was a man who developed methods to awaken human capacities that science considered impossible. His name was George Gurdjieff. And 3 different governments tried to erase him from history. Over the next 30 minutes, you will discover why Stalin ordered all of Gurdjieff's books to be burned, why the Orthodox Church declared him dangerous to the human soul, and why classified documents about his methods still exist today. Even more shocking, you'll see the 3 forbidden techniques he used to transform ordinary people into something that defied the laws of psychology. Everyone thinks Gurdjieff was just an eccentric 20th century mystic. The truth is far more disturbing. Ouspensky documented experiments Gurdjieff performed between 1915 and 1924 that proved it was possible to completely reprogram human consciousness. And the evidence was hidden in manuscripts that only came to light 50 years after his death. The first forbidden technique was discovered by Gurdjieff during 9 years he was missing in Central Asia, between 1894 and 1903. No one knows exactly where he went, but when he returned, he brought knowledge he said came from 4,000-year-old secret schools. Knowledge so dangerous that he only taught it under an oath of silence. In 1915, in St. Petersburg, Ouspensky witnessed Gurdjieff demonstrate something that the science of the time considered impossible. In just 40 minutes, using the first forbidden technique, he completely transformed a person's state of consciousness. What Ouspensky wrote that night in his secret diary changed his life forever. And when you find out what it was, you'll understand why they tried to erase Gurdjieff from history. St. Petersburg, 1915. P.D. Ouspensky was one of Russia's most respected intellectuals. A mathematician, philosopher, and author of books on higher dimensions. But when he met Gurdjieff, his rational view of the world was completely shattered. Gurdjieff stated something that seemed like madness: man is asleep. Everything you call consciousness is just a dream. Ouspensky challenged Gurdjieff to prove this claim. What happened next violated everything Ouspensky knew about human psychology. Gurdjieff asked for a volunteer from the audience, an engineer named Petrov. In 40 minutes, using a combination of specific breathing, precise movements, and something he called calculated shocks, he completely transformed Petrov's state of consciousness. Ouspensky documented that Petrov, after the technique, demonstrated abilities that were impossible minutes before: a perfect memory of early childhood events, a perception of details no one else saw, and something even more shocking: the ability to read people's emotional states just by observing micro-expressions invisible to the normal eye. That night, Ouspensky wrote in his diary, "Either I have witnessed the greatest hoax in history, or I have discovered something that will revolutionize our understanding of the human mind." Over the next few months, he saw Gurdjieff repeat this transformation with dozens of people. The technique always worked. But Gurdjieff revealed something even more disturbing. This was just the first of 3 techniques he had learned in the secret schools. The second technique was so powerful that he only taught it after years of preparation. And when you find out what it did, you'll understand why the authorities started to persecute him. After the 1915 demonstrations, Gurdjieff began to attract powerful followers. Russian aristocrats, intellectuals, even members of the Tsar's family began seeking him out. But with power comes danger. Religious authorities declared his methods contrary to divine will. Scientific authorities accused him of charlatanism. The Russian Revolution. Gurdjieff and his followers fled to the Caucasus. It was there, on an isolated estate, that he revealed the second forbidden technique to his inner circle. Ouspensky documented that Gurdjieff called it transformation of vital energy, the ability to consciously redirect the basic forces of the human body. What Gurdjieff demonstrated defied the known laws of biology. Through a specific combination of breathing, concentration, and what he called the division of attention, a person could literally redirect their vital energy to higher functions. Ouspensky documented people who, after the technique, could go for days without sleep while maintaining total mental clarity. But the most disturbing thing was the absolute emotional control. People who practiced the second technique developed the ability to maintain specific emotional states at will. Anger, joy, sadness, fear, everything became a conscious tool. Ouspensky wrote, "It was as if they had developed a control panel over their own humanity." But when Gurdjieff began teaching the second technique to larger groups, something terrible happened. Soviet authorities discovered he was creating people who could not be controlled through traditional methods of propaganda and fear. The third technique would be even more dangerous for the established power. Soviet authorities issued an arrest warrant for Gurdjieff. Not for political crimes, but for something far more dangerous: teaching methods that make citizens immune to ideological re-education. Gurdjieff and his followers fled to France, where they established the Institute for the Harmonious Development of Man. It was in France, in 1923, that Gurdjieff revealed his most forbidden technique. Only to 12 selected students. Ouspensky documented that he called it crystallization of consciousness, the ability to make higher states of consciousness permanent. In other words, conscious immortality. The third technique combined elements of the previous two with something Gurdjieff called conscious labor and intentional suffering. It wasn't just about awakening consciousness or controlling energy, it was literally about recreating oneself as a conscious being in such a way that physical death could not destroy the continuity of consciousness. Ouspensky documented that of the 12 students who learned the full technique, 5 developed abilities that defied scientific explanation. But 3 went completely insane. The technique was so powerful that it could either elevate someone beyond the normal human condition or completely destroy their sanity. In 1924, something happened that made Ouspensky break with Gurdjieff forever. A demonstration of the third technique that was so disturbing that Ouspensky wrote, "I saw something that should not be possible in this world." What he witnessed that day explains why, even today, classified documents about Gurdjieff exist. Fontainebleau, France, October 15, 1924. Ouspensky witnessed Gurdjieff demonstrate the third technique in its most extreme form. A student named Alexander, after 3 years of preparation, attempted complete crystallization. What happened during that 6-hour session changed Ouspensky forever. Ouspensky documented that Alexander, during the technique, demonstrated knowledge of events happening hundreds of miles away, spoke languages he had never learned, and exhibited what can only be described as consciousness expanded beyond the limits of the physical body. But the process came at a devastating cost. Alexander visibly aged during those 6 hours. His hair darkened and then turned white. His skin developed deep wrinkles. It was as if decades of life had been accelerated. Ouspensky realized that conscious immortality required sacrificing physical longevity. That night, Ouspensky made the most difficult decision of his life. He wrote in his diary, "I have seen powers that transcend the human condition, but I have also seen the price they demand. Some knowledge is too dangerous to pursue." He broke with Gurdjieff the next day and never spoke about the third technique again. But the story doesn't end there. After Gurdjieff's death in 1949, secret manuscripts were found that revealed something even more shocking about his techniques. Something that explains why governments still classify information about his methods today. Château du Prieuré, France. After Gurdjieff's death, his students found a collection of manuscripts hidden in a secret safe. The documents revealed that the 3 techniques were not his inventions, they were fragments of a much older, more complete system. The manuscripts contain detailed maps of monasteries in Tibet, Sufi schools in Afghanistan, and temples in Syria where Gurdjieff had studied between 1894 and 1903. Even more shocking, evidence that these secret schools had preserved knowledge from prehistoric civilizations about the true potential of human consciousness. The final manuscript contained a warning that explained everything. This knowledge has been hidden because humanity is not ready for it. When many awaken simultaneously, social structures collapse. Use only in extreme cases. Gurdjieff had been toying with forces that could either transform or destroy civilization. It was only decades after Gurdjieff's death that Ouspensky fully understood what he had witnessed. In his final memoirs, he wrote, "Gurdjieff was not just a teacher, he was a guardian of knowledge that our civilization lost millennia ago. He risked everything to preserve fragments of what the human being can become." Ouspensky realized that the 3 forbidden techniques were just the surface of a complete system for the accelerated evolution of human consciousness. A system so powerful that it explained why ancient civilizations collapsed, not from wars or natural disasters, but from internal transformations that their social structures could not support. As Ouspensky wrote in his last notes, "Gurdjieff showed me that the human being is asleep not by accident, but out of necessity. Waking many up simultaneously would create a world we wouldn't recognize. Perhaps it is better that his methods remain forbidden. As P.D. Ouspensky always said, some men come into the world to awaken those who are ready, and to be forgotten by those who are not." Gurdjieff was one of those men. His forbidden techniques prove that human consciousness has potentials that our science still cannot explain. And speaking of men who were erased from history for being too dangerous, there is another master who developed methods even more extreme than Gurdjieff's. Someone who not only awakened individual consciousnesses but created a spiritual revolution that entire governments tried to suppress. The video that will appear now will show you the most censored story of the 20th century. If the forbidden history of Gurdjieff shocked you as much as it has shocked millions around the world, you need to discover the next mystery they tried to hide. Click on the next video now and prepare to have your reality completely questioned.